Welcome back to Your Property Empire. Well, joining on the show tonight is Damian Steele from McGrath Estate Agents, and we've just been joined by Charles Tarby, Chairman and owner of Serenity 21 Australasia. Well, no matter whether you're a buyer or a seller, it's essential to understand the auction process so you're informed of whether it's going to work for you and how to take the best advantage of it. So, how many open house inspections do you need to sell a property, and how many in total would a good agent do in a week? We'll jump to you first, Damian.
Absolutely. So look, there's no hard and fast rule as such. Different agents have different strategies. I personally, for a campaign, always like to have a 1 to 2 week period where you're bringing people through from your database. I mean, agents are always banging on about, we have the buyer. So it'd be silly not to follow up on that promise. So 1 to 2 weeks of bringing people through that are qualified. If that materialises into an offer and or a sale, great. If not, then it's generally a 4-week campaign and you'll have 7 to 8 open houses in that window.
Right, sellers think you just chuck an advert on realestate.com and it's pretty much done. I guess what's the difference between, selling it to an average buyer or having those qualified people on your database? What difference does that make to the seller?
Look, I think for the most part, if you've got a pool of qualified buyers, generally they're a bit more aggressive. They want to be on your hit list. They want to be the first to know about the property. And quite often you can actually get a premium out of those buyers. They don't want to have to go through the rigmarole again of competing against the market. So as an agent and as a team, a collective with the vendor, you're well positioned to actually say, look, put your best foot forward, picture what you're actually going to spend at auction and do it now plus whatever. That's generally how we run the race there.
Now, what's going to happen if you literally have not a single person at auction?
Look, I think for the most part, don't lose face. There's going to be a reason for that. I mean, there's 3 things that sell a property. It's price, presentation and marketing. So if you've ticked off presentation and marketing, which most people do on the advice of the agent, then really the only thing left is price. So I think you need to sit down with the owner, have the hard conversation, which you should have actually had earlier on anyway, and just realign the price with the market. And by that point, 4 weeks in or thereabouts, you're going to have some pretty hard, tangible evidence as to what that actual price is. And
obviously in the media, there's a big concentration about selling over reserve. So I guess the question is how does a good agent sell over reserve? And does actually the reserve mean anything? Because ultimately it's the seller that dictates what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, look, very much so. And the reserve is a combination of market feedback, what the actual agent puts forward as his or her recommendation, and of course the owner's expectations. I guess I had an auction on Saturday. The reserve was $950. It actually sold for $1.218. Now the reason behind that was the owner took my advice. We did what we thought was a very conservative guide throughout the campaign. It was a deceased estate. The motivation was high to very high to get the result done, or the job done. But it wasn't misleading in any way, and I want to make note of that as a disclaimer because the reserve actually was $950, so the guide was consistent with the reserve. But given the market conditions and the buoyancy at the moment, there's no recommended retail price for a property. Things happen, and that's another example of what can happen in the eastern suburbs.
I saw it deceased
advertising at News Corp. Good to see you, Damian and Tom.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off. What's a sustainable agent?
It's a very good question. Look, I think for the most part, you need to have, putting skill set aside, you need to have longevity. You need to have a long-term approach. So I think if you're in it for the short game, you're going to come unstuck. So for the most part, though, if you don't love people, if you don't love long hours, if you don't love the smell of a deal, and if you have issues with rejection and setbacks, again, you're going to come unstuck. So I think sustainability means different things to different people, but for me, it's all those criterias.
Most competitive markets in Australia. So I guess for the other agents out there, why would you want to get into real estate, and what's kept you in it for so long?
Look, again, it probably ties in with the first question. Why do you want to get into real estate? I think if you genuinely love helping people, that's going to go a long way. And I think if you like flexibility as well, that's also going to go a long way. And having no ceiling on what you can achieve and what you can actually earn, that's going to go a long way as well. So I think you need a certain personality type. I think you have to have tough skin to an extent. You have to be able to negotiate. You have to be able to connect with all walks of life. They're probably the key things.
Of starting all over again.
Yeah, look, I think there's a few things. I think try and manage the fact that you're overwhelmed and wanting to absorb everything. I think the key thing is to connect yourself in shadow with someone that you admire, that is doing things that you want to be doing in 5-10 years. I think that's key. And I think just keep it simple, really. Just find out what your strengths are, work out what the gaps and your weaknesses are as well, but, perhaps don't dwell on those too much, but work on your strengths and hone in on them and keep things concentrated. But above and beyond, just go nuts, oversurface people and make them love you and make them talk about you, as Tom said before.
And so where does the most of your business come from?
For the most part, it's past clients from referrals. And again, Tom touched on it. If you do the right thing by people, they're going to tell the world. They're going to actually go out of their way and tell the world. So for me, past clients from referrals, I'm not the agent that gets a lot of business out of stuffing people's letterboxes with my face and my name. So really, it's people that have touch points. Yeah, I know, I don't get it either. But it's really, you have to have a touch point, I think, a couple of touch points to be able to actually deserve the business.
And Tom, differentiate yourself from all the other agents, and even in your office. McGrath's probably got some of the best agents in the suburbs, so I assume in your office then there's competition in there as well.
Look, there is, and it's a really good question, and I think there's an awful lot of things that agents do the same. To a lot of owners and prospective clients, we are two black dots. So how are you going to add value? I think the key thing first is find out what their values are. Now, that may sound a little bit cliched, but if you can actually tap into what's important to that particular client, what's driving them, what's scaring them, what's motivating them, because it's really not about the property as such, it's about actually how to get them moving and how to do it in a fashion that they're comfortable with. So in answer to your question, I think it's listening. I think it's adding value and demonstrating that value, because if you can't demonstrate it, then they might as well stand out the front of their house with a hat and have people drop offers in. Within McGrath, I think for the most part there's an element of healthy competition, but we do absolutely practice teamwork, and that's definitely one of our points of differences as well, that when we sit in someone's lounge room, we can say you're not just getting Damian Steele, you're getting a whole harem of other agents who want to do the right thing by you.
And Tom, just as a final thing before we move on, I guess what